With another preview slash prediction video, and today we are here for Lions Commanders. We're going to lay out the blueprint to what feels like a must-have-it type of game, a big game in the NFC North, and also a revenge spot for the Lions. So let's get right into it. So today we're here to lay out the blueprint for how the Lions can get back in the win column. They've lost 2 of their last 3. So it's about time to get things right. And I do think there's a lot of opportunities, especially on the offensive side of the ball, to feel like it's a get-right game. That's not to say you score 40 points against this team, but specifically in the run game, it's a real opportunity to create some explosives, create some movement up front, and deal with a team that can get pretty creative with how they stop the run, similar to last week. Maybe not as crazy as what Minnesota would do, but there's still some movement up front that they're going to be challenged with this weekend as well. So I think it's an excellent opportunity for that element of this game. Now, unfortunately, this Washington team looks a bit different, not having some of their key contributors in this game. Of course, it starts with quarterback Jaden Daniels being ruled out for this game. Also, Terry McLaurin has been ruled out as well. Now, the games that I've went through, I haven't noticed him be incredibly impactful so far this season. Deebo Samuel will have his flashes here and there, but there's just been some true inconsistencies, I think, within their pass game. I think some of the simplicity, some of the route concepts have shown up a bit so far this season. That was one of the reasons I thought this Washington team would take a step back this year, because of some of that within their offense. But what kind of breaks through that is their quarterback play. Now, not having Jaden loses some of that. However, Mariota's done a great job of what he's done off script, broken plays, his ability to create there. He had a big one against Kansas City early, where he got a one-on-one opportunity on the sideline, created a broken play for a big gain for them offensively, and he's such an element within the run game. So is Jaden Daniels. To me, it's their biggest calling card, is their creativity within what they can do in the rushing attack. Well, Marcus Mariota brings a lot of that still to the table as well. They'll run power runs to him. He tries to jump over guys, so they don't really lose anything there without having Jaden Daniels this week. So it's a big challenge for the Lions, but a great opportunity as well. Now, starting with the injury report, I just mentioned a couple of the key ones. Few things for the Lions. Josh Paschal's back and practicing. He's not going to play this weekend, but limited all week. Same thing with Miles Frazier. There's big positives there going forward that we could be on track to getting those guys back soon. Kirby Joseph is also ruled out for this game. Brian Branch, it all seems like Daniel Thomas is going to be available for this game as well, still having Terrion available. And for the tackle position, I would assume Penei Sewell's going to play. He's not listed with any kind of injury designation after full participation on Friday. And then for Taylor Decker, no participation Friday, was listed with shoulder/rest. It feels like he's kind of up in the air whether or not he's going to be able to go this weekend. Again, on the Commander side, I think there's some positive news across the board here outside of the 2 big ones that we mentioned. Safety position, it seems like they're going to have Quan Martin available this week, so they're going to be a little bit healthier at safety, though I think they've gotten some really good play out of that position specifically. And on the offensive line, Laramie Tunsil being available for this game as well. They've done so much behind him specifically. They should have their number 1 back in this game. So with all that being said, let's jump right into the schematics of this one. And I want to start first with this Washington Commanders offense. There's a lot of things to hit on here, but it's that rushing attack that starts everything. It's so versatile in the ways that they can attack you defensively, and still the majority of their run game is the inside zone rush element. And I think now with a healthier offensive line, you have Tyler Biadasz where things kind of start up front, but their ability to lean on Laramie Tunsil. Sam Cosme's back in the mix. He could be a people mover at the point of attack. You also have Brandon Coleman at left guard. There is some movement pieces that they have up front, and that's a majority of what they will lean into offensively. Now, there's a lot of split zones out of that. Here's the key element to their rushing attack is their tight ends. Not only their quarterback, their tight ends are incredibly involved in what they do up front. If you beat their tight ends at the point of attack, you're probably going to create negatives. If you don't, you're going to get gashed. It feels just that straightforward in a lot of instances. You can say, well, just bring a safety down. Well, it's difficult because their quarterbacks are part of the run game. Their tight ends get out. They'll lead in some of their zone looks up front or some of their counters up front. So it's difficult to just have a safety kind of be your answers to all your questions. You have to win, and those guys block really well at the point of attack. So how the Lions handle that matchup may decide everything up front here. Now, I still will say, because so much is still a heavily inside zone, you have to up front win and create and be able to cover up multiple gaps at times in this game. If you're just taking up a single gap and you're getting sealed off and walled off, it's going to put a lot of stress on our linebackers to have to be outside and be inside. That's a lot to deal with, and we're going to give up some chunks doing that. So we need the interior defensive linemen to come through and just create havoc on their own, free up these backers to play fast, and then, of course, for the backers, beat up these tight ends, because otherwise they're going to have success in their run game. Outside of that specifically, again, the zone read is a big part of what they do. I think with Mariota, it's a big threat. The tight end leads that they'll do outside of the tackle box as well, specifically. When you get the short yard situations, you get a little more downhill duo run, which is kind of an extension of their inside zone attack. And then their flexibility comes into play because of their power runs and their ability to pull offensive linemen and play into a gap scheme. Now, their counter pulls haven't been overly that successful this year. Shorter runs there, they've popped it, occasionally, but for the most part, you've gotten a lot more more underneath success there than anything. And then they do a lot of toss variations to the run plays, which allows them to make it quicker hitters, get it to the back a lot quicker. Let's run an outside zone toss, and we'll put it in his hands incredibly quickly. We've seen teams do that in the past, and Washington has picked up on that. So for me, beat up the tight ends. Laramie Tunsil becomes the key, especially for a lot of the cutbacks of their runs as well. You're going to get a lot of quick hitters, so things are going to hit that line of scrimmage very quickly, which means we need quick sheds. We need to create negatives. You may have to occasionally blitz a little bit to stop the run. I don't think that's an issue in this game. It wouldn't surprise me at all. So those are a couple of keys that I'm keeping an eye on. Now, when it comes to their passing attack, again, I don't think it's the most complex passing attack in terms of route concepts or, man, they got 5 targets on the field that you got to deal with, but they do such a great job of playing off of that rushing element. There's so much eye candy that they create in the backfield. They'll implement jet runs off of it, but there's also a lot of motion. Here comes an orbit motion. We'll throw a backwards pass for a screen, or it's just a simple run fake. Now, a lot of it does come out of the gun, not really under center, but they still sell the run really well from play fakes with a lot of their pulling offensive linemen and the movement in the backfield, and that sells and holds linebackers, and it creates opportunities for them to just quick second-level shots. And because their quarterback's ability to move, a lot of it gets designed roll out to the right. You have an opportunity for them to really elongate route concepts where they just continue to go on so long. Whereas a defense, you got to cover for a hot minute. If you don't pressure the quarterback at all, now it becomes a problem because things will break open late. Now, the key player for me here, especially without McLaurin, is absolutely Zach Ertz. And it's really been this way through the games I've watched when McLaurin has played. He is the key piece on third down to keep drives alive. He is their key piece when you expect man coverage. They'll set picks for this guy. He is great in broken plays, and he's big in the red zone because he just finds windows. Zach Ertz feels like the absolute key to this passing attack. Debo does a lot after the catch, a lot of route concepts, bubble screen, slants, a lot of things like that, maybe not as much vertically. But to me, I'm going to start and end with what Zach Ertz does. A guy like Luke McCaffrey immediately off the line of scrimmage, I think you can jam him out off the line of scrimmage, create some problems for him, really kind of stumble and just kind of shut down some of those routes before they get started. And I do think they've shown problems this year trying to separate consistently against man coverage. I think that's been an issue. I think where teams have fallen victim to Washington is the running back. A lot of teams, if they play match coverage in the back end, the running back just leaks out uncovered. And because these plays extend, the running back, a delayed release becomes a big threat. So keys is one. You have to have eyes on that back because he will leak out and pick up 25 yards like that because nobody's covering him and the play just goes on too long. Number two, as simple as it may sound, we have to get pressure, and that can be blitzing or not blitzing. You have to find a way to get in the quarterback's face where he cannot continue to just let the play extend. Yes, a lot of it is what the quarterback has been able to do with the ball in his hands, just taking off and running. I think concept-wise, you look for a lot of flood attacks offensively, a lot of layers, movement. You get a lot of half field where it kind of cuts off on him, but a lot of things become half field. You also get a lot of kind of deep level 2 routes where you're just attacking middle of the field, trying to get behind your linebackers in front of your safeties and work off of that. If you match, you're probably going to cover it pretty well. It just becomes then the checkdowns underneath, which become the threat, or the quarterback just running, which is why you need a guy in his face, which is where I think a guy like Alex Anzalone getting in the quarterback's face, crashing down, feeling that he has no threat underneath, and just going. You have to be reactive there because they won't always have that many routes where you actually need to pick up anybody, but someone's got to have that trigger to go, right? Deep corner routes which attack vertically, and then when they need shorter things, you'll get a lot of angle routes kind of through stacks where they clump you together, they'll cluster, or they'll run bunch sets offensively to try to create some spacing underneath. For the vertical attacks, it's a lot of overloading, right? It's a lot of overloading, and here's 3 guys on the side. Here comes a late wheel route that will try to get out of there. There's a lot of that. There's creativity. I like what they did in the red zone. I think cover 4 has been successful against this team as long as your quarterbacks are aggressive to crash and your linebackers play fast. But you can see here, this is where they try to attack that single high safety. They get man on this play. They get a little bubble fake, and that pulls the safety, and they can try to come back and hit Ertz one-on-one. Zone coverage look in the red zone where they just ran one player to kind of clear out. They had 2 guys to clear out on one side, and they ran a backside just deep over route, and they scored a touchdown. It was a beautiful throw. That was an awesome play that they had so far this season because they're pretty smart schematically if they can anticipate what you're going to get to, and we've seen that. Double post, kind of the vertical concepts there. Again, a lot of this isn't the craziest things, right? Just a one-on-one will just take a shot to a fade or run a deep corner round. We saw that last year. Lions played single high. But if they deliver a great pass, sometimes that's what it is. And Jaden did that to us last year a couple of times. And he's got the ability to do that. When they're in third and long situations, you look for kind of deep curl routes. I would say for the Lions, there's no issue with playing single high. I want to see Mariota beat us with deep out routes, beat us on the deep end breakers, make him make those throws, make him make tight window throws, kind of like we did with Cleveland. It's not to say he can't do that, but I think that's the game that you're okay with playing. You're okay with bringing extra body. It's okay with challenging him to make those throws. I wanted to throw this in the video. We're putting together our lay for the Lions Commanders game using MyBookie. So make sure you use code DOSE when you sign up. If it's your first time signing up with MyBookie, you can opt in using your bet back bonus token. Any bet up to $500 is covered using that code. Now, we're in here right now, and we are going to put this together. I've already put it together, but I just want to show it off. So first off, we have Jared Goff over passing yards of 250 yards. I'm going to talk about how he's going to get some explosives in this passing game, so I like that number. Also, Marcus Mariota under, 28.5 rushing yards. They have the number on here because he's very impactful in the rushing attack, but the Lions have handled it pretty well, so I'm going to lean into the Lions doing that once again and going the under there. Also, Marcus Mariota under 30.5 passing attempts in this game. Interested in why this number is so high. Maybe they think they'll be playing from behind a bit in this one, but I think we get some sacks, keep that number a little bit lower. And then also, I guess it's the under kind of day. I have total points under 49.5, as you'll see by my final score. That just makes sense. So a $10 bet could return me 130 if this hits. Place that multi. If you want to get in on action, make sure you sign up for my bookie. Use that code DOSE. We've seen some issues to separate for them. If you do sit back in like quarters or cover 4 and like, hey, no vertical shots, we want to take those away, force underneath, that's fine. It's going to turn into a big screen game, right? Bubble screens, get the ball out, catch and run opportunities, going to turn into that. And they have guys that can do that. I don't think Merritt's the most shifty back, but he is tough. He gets downhill pretty well. And again, that's where Debo really becomes kind of their big threat offensively. I think ideally you want to challenge this team, prove that they can separate one-on-one. Again, you can't just give free running backs out of the backfield, but then also we've seen cover zero be successful. We've seen questionable decisions in that spot. A lot of it's more simplistic. I think that's kind of an issue with their passing attack, but a lot of it's created through creativity behind the line of scrimmage, which is going to challenge our linebackers a lot, and they're probably going to try to challenge our post safety because if Brian Branch is in the box, they're probably going to try to make one of our backup safeties work and try to hit a vertical shot on them because last week that happened in the end zone. I would assume teams are going to point to that as that's where we're going to get a shot. So aggressiveness from the safety will likely dive down, and they're probably going to get a one-on-one on the outside, which they'll probably try to run away from somebody. So let's get somebody in his face to try to at least disrupt some of those clean shot attempts. Flip it to the other side of the ball. For the Lions offensively in this game, starting with the rushing attack, I think we should find rush success. Now, I said that last week against Minnesota, and it wasn't great. There's not as much movement up front, which was going to be the big challenge for young guards was the athleticism. You don't get as much of that from Washington, but there is some athletes. Biggest one, guys like Johnny Newton up front is a pretty good athlete. He creates some negatives. You do have Javon Kinlaw up there. You have Daron Payne. You have guys that can create negatives, and Frankie Louvu could be, just like what they had in Ivan Pace last week for Minnesota, that could disrupt and find negatives. They will go to some slanting up front, not always even blitzing, just slanting gaps up front to try to create negatives. If they have you pinned back, they may do that. You utilize their athleticism. I think that's really come the biggest threat. Now, they will give up big plays off of that if you can just get beyond that first line, but you have to do that, and that's something the Lions couldn't consistently do this past week is just get to the line of scrimmage. So let's get some hitters where we're at the line, we're decisive, we're getting upfield, right? Maybe a little bit less of the dancing, if that's Gibbs or Monty, just let's get upfield. I like to see a little Vaki this week. I think it's worthwhile giving him some of those looks. But that being said, ultimately here, I think the Lions should have success. I think outside zone has found a lot of success. Typically, we run the outside zone well. We run the ball well. It's kind of a core of who we want to be. And both Monty and Gibbs can both excel in that category. Monty will get downhill off a cut, and Gibbs can create explosives in that area. We just have to hold up a bit. So it seems like it's kind of setting up to be another Dave Montgomery game, which I thought last week would be as well because inside zones works, powers work. You can go gap scheme against these guys. They will get pushed around. You can push around Eddie Goldman at the point of attack, which can open up some stretch success, but you can push him around at the point of attack. When you get that opportunity, you probably should go at it. I don't think their DNs are great at setting an edge at all. I think they give up a lot to the outside. For them, their DBs do a good job in run support, but I think you can give those guys problems at just kind of pushing them off their spot. So outside zone stretches can find success off of that. I like running at the Jalen Holmes on the edge. I like running at, if they had a Preston Smith on the edge, I like running at all those guys on the edge against this team. Make them deal with the run game. And I think some of the counter stuff, Bobby Wagner hasn't looked as fast to me so far this season, which is crazy to say because he's a dog, but he hasn't looked as quick so far this year. So I think some of the counter stuff does open up and some of the power stuff for that as well. And plus, you can kind of just seal these guys down. Now, we have seen negatives because their DBs will create negatives. Their safety run support is really strong, right? We've seen that so far. Reeves has been a really good run defender. So they've been able to create negatives, I think, a lot of times through that side of their defense, more so than consistently what they do up front, other than maybe occasionally you'll slip a block. So Lions should find success and be able to lean it in this game. And you flip around the other side, mentioning Washington, they'll go very heavy pass to open the run. You think about them as their very creative passing offense. Don't be shocked at all if they lean into pass to try to open the run game, understanding that we need to take that away. they may do that. They've had drives this year where they've went past every single play, right? And a lot of it was play action, but they are completely challenging you in that pass game to try to open that run later on. And I think it's because they understand that it's not always the deepest passing attack, but they're very creative in their run game. So we're going to sell pass, and then that run game becomes a handful to deal with as the game goes on. Early down passing from a team like Washington, where they try to get much more simplified looks and they try to work off that. That's where they try to create their shots, and then they flip it around. They start running, later in the drives or in those opportunities off of pass plays where they can find success. Now, for the Lions offensively in this game, this is a team that does play a lot of cover 3 in Washington, a lot of that. And the problem with that is we had some issues with it last week against Minnesota, so it doesn't guarantee anything. I would say you obviously want to find ways to kind of run some clear out routes. I would love to get behind these backers. I think that's a issue with their defense right now is you can get behind their linebackers in zone coverage. You can also get behind their safeties. They run a lot of sky cover 3, so you may have some flat opportunities once the safety is going to race out there, but they're aggressive. So I think you have to hit shots behind him. Deep corner routes, you find ways to expose that. You find ways to go at Trey Amos when you have that one-on-one. He's gotten exposed a few times this year, but that's a lot of kind of their base coverage. First down, a lot of cover 3. You may get some variation on first down out of that a little bit where it's like, hey, maybe we'll blitz a little bit or maybe we'll match it up and take away the vertical shots. And then in that case, we just go underneath and, make you tackle. But I think you're going to get a lot of that on early first downs. Maybe they crank up the blitzing a bit like Minnesota did last week. That could make sense as a wrinkle. On second down and short, they do well as they do cover up screens really well. They've covered up screens really well this season from what I've seen. They've covered up the flats really well. I think you got to use like angle routes. You have to find short underneath spacing. That's something that they've given up a lot of is just spacing routes. They've given up a lot of quick spacing, quick hitters. Just get the ball out of your hands fast. They try to match things vertically. You just get the ball out quick, right? You just kind of stack up one side or you cluster up one side and you're just quick spacing on both sides. I think those, like the quick stick concepts, those things could give them problems and find ways to just stay on top of the chains a lot in this game. Second and medium, when they start to go more one-on-one coverage, again, go at Trey Amos. I think if you can get speed and quickness on Sainer still, you got success. Obviously, if that's Saint, that's great. Maybe a little Khalif in that matchup as well. Maybe a little bit of Gibbs in the slot. If you can get that, that's where I think he's had the most issues so far. Obviously, if you can get J-Mo there, but remember, he undercut a pass to the end zone. It was a good read. He just undercut it in the playoffs and picked one off. But level 2, you can separate against him. We've seen that this year. It's just you kind of need that. He's a very smart player, but if you can get him isolated, speed and quickness can give him some issues. They get you backed up. It's very straightforward. A lot of quarters coverage. Now, again, 3. Maybe we'll go some Tampa 2. But you can kind of anticipate, I think, really what kind of coverages you're going to get just by down a distance. I don't think it gets that crazy at any point. Third and medium, you get a little bit softer coverage. Like, hey, Tampa 2, cover 6, quarter. Like, it's a little bit softer in those points, in those spots, but they can kind of settle back on the sticks a bit there. So maybe some catch and run opportunities. But I think all of it's pretty you can anticipate from what I've seen so far pretty well what you're probably going to get. Third and long, they get a little more creative. You might get some inverted looks. I would create a lot of high lows in those spots. Obviously, Tampa 2 in those positions. That's where you have to do a good job of kind of using your tight end. I think spot up on the sticks, deep curls there. You can run kind of the routes to try to clear out and try to attack the seams where you can create a dagger on one side. But you're probably going to have to use like deep settling routes where it's like, hey, a deep curl, sliding outside. Maybe we'll hit the same we'll hit the deep curl to a guy like Laporta with his size. That's kind of been our answer so far this season to those kind of looks. Pressure pieces, Jacob Martin, big sleeper on the edge. He's been a big pressure piece for them. When they've been good up front, it's been because of him. I feel like Payne can do a little bit, of course, as a rusher as well. Again, attack that safety play. They will get aggressive, especially on a lot of their cover 3 looks specifically. So for us, I think we're going to find success against this defense. I don't think it's overly crafty, but I think that's why they play pretty darn fast, and that can give them some benefits, and there's an aggressive nature to it, and they shut down just, oh, you want to take that? Fine, we're going to shut that down. So you have to be willing to push the ball. You have to be willing to get the ball downfield in this game, which can be a little bit tougher on the road, but I think that's the challenge they're going to present with us is they're going to make us push the ball a little bit. It could open up the game really quickly for us and allow for explosives. I think that's why you saw the Lions be really aggressive last year when they try to hit a lot of explosives, because they're going to open that door for you to find those. If you can pass protect and Skipper, and whether that's Skipper or Decker, and if Sewell plays, like if you can pass protect, you're going to have explosives open up. So we just need to hold up a bit up front there. Maybe you move the pocket as well to try to do that, but I think you're going to try to push the ball early against these guys in this game to really open up this defense, and then you should be able to run off of that. My prediction in this game, I'm fairly confident, though I think that their broken plays are the biggest threat, and the movement of the quarterback, which we've done a really good job of this year, gives me optimism, but it's a big challenge, and they're going to come out throwing. They're going to set up that run, and you just got to be in a spot where really you take the run out of the game. That's been an issue for them. The run has fallen out of favor for them when they're down 2 or 3 scores. If you could take it out of the game, that element of their team kind of pulls back big time. So try to pull that out of the game. If you can get to a spot where you're up a couple scores, I think you're going to be very confident, but you have to get up a couple of scores for that to be the case. So I think you come out aggressive, you try to jump up a couple scores in this game, feeling like you can get yourself back into it, but also understanding that if you're down too big, you're going to struggle to stop that run. I'm going to go with a confident victory here on the road. I'm going to say the Lions get it done. 28-17, Lions get it done on the road. Get back in the win column. There's where I'm at with my prediction. Feels low, but I like that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Shout out to my bookie for sponsoring today's video. Use code DOSE, and I'm out.